Hello, this is Jon Speelman with the video version of my latest column, number 164, which I've called Christmas Nights. I'm just going to go first and check that we are recording, because otherwise there is no point to this whatsoever. And the red light is on. Very good. Right, so what I said was that a fortnight ago, rather spuriously, I tried to make some connection between chess positions or games and Monty Python sketches. And I tried to do this. I thought it would be fun. And I asked people whether they had any ideas as to other things I could do. And of course, I forgot rather stupidly to include the Spanish Inquisition. I mean, it's an obvious thing to do since we do have the Spanish opening. I mean, that really is a very obvious thing. So I've included that, and I've got a column with various things in, and I'm going to go to the diagrams, to the chess base now, and it's column 164 down here, and I've got half a dozen games. Somebody said, what about the knights who say ni? And he suggested, or she, that, no, I think it was Peter somebody, so it'd be he, that I used the end of Karpov Korchnoi. This is a famous game from Baguio. It was pretty important because Korchnoi was trying to win, and they got tricked by Karpov and lost. So, I mean, I'm not really going to look at this game in much detail. D5 is an interesting move. I don't know much about this game. I know that near the end, I mean, I could find annotation somewhere, obviously. At some point, this became quite good for Korchnoi. Here he could just have played knight c2 actually when I asked an engine. I mean, and that was a way to get a clear advantage. What he did was he ended up getting two rooks and several pawns against a rook and two knights. And Karpov coordinated his pieces excellently. Impressive how he managed to coordinate them. And then I think maybe it's best to pin the knight actually. Even though you don't get the second pawn, what black is tied up, which is a rather wonderful thing, given what occurred. Anyway, knight to there, rook to a3, rook c6, and here a catastrophe occurred. I think it was a time scramble. I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure it was. Korchnoi could have drawn with g3, but he played rook a1, which led to a great deal of kneeing after the vicious blow knight to f3 check, when it's checkmate in two more moves. If pawn takes knight, if we go back, pawn takes knight, rook checks, knight to their mate, and of course if king h1, knight to their mate immediately. So poor Korchnoi lost a position he was trying to win in a couple of moves. But I did say I didn't think there was much of a shrubbery really in this game, if we're going to have knights who say ni. And I was looking at the latest edition of Chess Magazine in Great Britain, in England, where I'm in London, and there was a solution to a Christmas competition, which is really rather fun. And this, I think you could claim that the bottom right, so the bit about h1, and the top left, the bit about a8, could certainly be thought of as bushes, couldn't they? They're like clumps of pieces. So there's something of the shrubbery about this. Anyway, it goes check here. You can get king g6, but after knight e5 you just repeat, so there's no point in that. And what happens, obviously this has been set up precisely so that this works. The first time I set this diagram up, I failed to put the pawn on a4, which obviously makes it totally unsound. But then I realised and added the pawn and started again. And you give check. It's all checks. The two knights do their stuff. And miraculously we've got to the same position again. And as I pointed out, the knights who are now presumably saying Eki, 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 is it Pitang Zu Boing? That's what they changed to, the knights who formerly said Ni, are on lap 2. So quite a nice, I'm not sure really if it's a problem or a study. It's sort of a construction task, isn't it? Find a very long repetition. So every 16 moves is pretty good, really. Okay, that's this. And then there was, well, I said, well, this wasn't so much about, well, no, I took this as a night thing. I was trying to recall a study which was doing the rounds a while ago with lots of under promotions to knights. I couldn't find it. And then eventually Luke McShane said to me, well, that's Plaskett's problem. Plaskett himself I had a chat to, and he said, well, got no idea why they call it Plaskett's problem, but it's a wonderful problem. And, well, I mean, he did shirt lots of people. Anyway, it was actually a problem by Gies van Breukelen from 1970, I believe. And it's quite a famous position. It's rather splendid. The solution goes check, king here. I suppose I could give some variations. King to here, bishop checks, king takes, pawn equals queen check. I mean, at least this will what it will do at least. Or yeah, king g6 check, or king to here check, king to here, pawn equals queen. And we'll replace this. I mean, it's not very, makes no great difference. And then what happens is that you go check and check. Now you have your queen. Black goes and takes it as you would. And suddenly the black king is in a mating net. And the only way to avoid being mated immediately is to start dropping foals. I think dropping actually isn't the right word. I thought it was to drop a foal, but apparently not. And now you're threatening to come round, and you have to do this again. Notice that the bishop on b4 stops knight b4. And now you're threatening bishop e8 mate. And now it's mate, because you can't stop bishop to d1, takes e2, takes f3. So, a rather lovely study, very pretty. Quite silly, but again a sort of a task where you have 200 promotions, 4 black knights on the board, many much horses, and something of the shrubbery about it, I think. There's sort of, it's quite bushy, the construction, you feel, I don't know. Anyway, that's what I said. And the thing with this is that it's actually a triumph for the bishop. There's a not so well known Monty Python sketch in which, I can't remember which of them it is, struts around in gangster style as the bishop. And so I gave a study in which a bishop triumphs. This is a famous study by M. Matus. I'm not sure what his first name is. I think somebody told me recently. And I actually looked at queen d6 and pawn takes pawn and king h8 and started faffing around. But the solution is the lovely queen c8, which I just didn't see, actually, stupidly. King g8 is the only move, because you've got to, because bishop b7 is threatened. And now you play the glorious move, bishop to there. Absolutely glorious move. Threatening pawn takes pawn with check, threatening queen takes queen. So knight takes bishop would lose to pawn takes pawn check. Takes, check, king to here, bishop e5. And this beautiful piece is going to win the game. The only move to do anything sensible here is queen c5, which stops f8 and threatens queen takes bishop with check. And now the bishop has to retreat. And what you have to do is to work out the tempi. It turns out that bishop b2 is the right move, because if bishop here, then white is in Zugzwang and white loses. But you go bishop b2, threatening king e6 check, knight c7, bishop a1. And black's got no moves. He's just got nothing to do because of this diagonal. If he moves the h-pawn, you play... I'll play some more moves. Okay, so if h5, king g6 check, or... what else is there? Nothing really, is there? I don't know what else you can even consider. Queen to there, check here. Should we have a rook? I suppose we'll have a rook to be fancy. Okay, so what happens is he has to go knight d5 check here, here, and you take it and you deliver checkmate. A very, very beautiful ending in which the bishop and the pawn on f7 defeat a whole army. White is actually, if you look at the position where we start, white is actually at this point, I suppose 11 pawns down, formally speaking, but it is completely winning. So this is lovely. And then, well, what else is there? Then I went on from the bishop to, somebody said, what about the Dirty Hungarian Phrase book, which is a sketch in which John Cleese walks into a tobacconist and attempts, without, I must say, a very good Hungarian accent, to to use a phrase book to, I'm not being, well, no, I'm not being critical, I mean, I've heard lots of Hungarians, eventually the shopkeeper, Graham Chapman, attempts to use the phrase book and gets clocked, gets thumped. And so here we are, the Hungarian defence is this. I looked up traps in the Hungarian, it's not something I know anything much about, and I found something about Segai Shah, a little thing in which he talked about this pawn takes pawn, queen d5, which is a perfectly good move actually, it takes castles. Now you can play bishop g7 or you can play knight c3, they're both good moves. Bishop c1 is not as bad a move as you might think, in fact. Now knight b4, queen d1 is really awful because of c2 and pawn takes knight and black's just a pawn up with the advantage. But in fact you can play queen h5 apparently, according to this engine. I assume that you should go knight c2 at once. Does it help not going knight c2, or is d5 better? King e2, king d1 is also okay actually. And this position is a bit better for black, but still a complete mess, of course. As you can see, I mean, it's a fight anyway. So this is this trick that you... White has to be quite clued up to play queen d5 and bishop h6. Not very. And it's just bad luck that in that position it doesn't lead to advantage for white. Oh, by the way, in this position, if bishop g7, knight b4, queen e5 is winning for white apparently. d5, queen g3, splat. So that would be very disappointing. That's just gone, I think. Okay, so that's completely plus minus, yeah. Because I wondered whether you 5 immediately, as perhaps you don't. Right, that's that. And then I've got two games. I've got, also from the Holy Grail, I've got the Black Knight, who's the guy who gets all his limbs cut off and then says it's only a scratch. And I don't know. There must be positions which look dire but are defensible. And I just thought of this very famous game, Kasparov-Petrosian. I was amazed. I found that Petrosian actually won his first 3 games as black against Kasparov, though he lost the next 2. Of course, he was a wonderful player. And I don't know, we can scoot through. I've got some notes here. I haven't really looked at them particularly. That isn't the point of what I'm doing. That's right, this is one of the ways of playing this position. Probably theoretically a good idea. White gets a lot of space, and obviously Kasparov thought he was going to splat post Petrosian here. But Petrosian fought really hard. Took a pawn, as you do, because he needed to have something for his woes. Bishop a3 looks like it's getting very... It just looks as though it'll end 1-0, doesn't it? It's quite a fine move in itself. It's very brave. I don't know if it's necessary. I guess it probably is. So I'm just going to say this brave move isn't much liked by the engines. It shows wonderful fighting spirit. Fighting spirit. So I'm not really annotating this properly, I have to say. Okay, there are some horrible things. That is the end of the world, is it? That's checkmate. Bishop b4 question mark. So apparently knight a3 was winning. And here it's in this position that it looks as though he's going to be splatted, and he suddenly finds the wonderful move king c6, just totally changing the geometry of the position. So you just bring your king out and say, all right, show me. And this wonderful, wonderful move won the game for Petrosian, because Kasparov was totally discombobulated by it. And what actually occurred? Apparently, bishop c7 takes. This should lead to a draw, apparently. Mustn't take with the queen. Mustn't play queen e6, because then c3 promotes the pawn. But if you get to this position, the engine's saying it's equal. It's not obvious to me, but I suppose you're going to go queen c7 and knight b6, it'd be alright. I was wondering if you could maybe try to attack. I suppose even if you win a pawn as white, you might not win. The g6 pawn's a little bit weak, perhaps. Okay. Anyway, what happened was that suddenly he's defending himself. The pin on the d5 knight doesn't matter, and he's defended, and yeah, fantastic. Rook a4, and here Kasparov resigned because he's basically got nothing for his material. So a wonderful defensive idea, fantastic defensive concept by Petrosian. Really brilliant. And remember, Kasparov steam was coming out of his ears when he played by this stage. He was already very, very strong indeed. And then finally the Spanish Inquisition, which I hope by now you weren't expecting. And this famous game in which Karpov outplayed Unziker. Interestingly, I mean, White's got a space advantage now. And the lovely move, I could have mentioned the game Kasparov, Deep Blue Kasparov, but I thought I'd done sort of... but I think Deep Blue played Bishop a7 at one stage. But this wonderful move just prevents black from simplifying. And so black is tied up on the queen side, and it's very unpleasant. I mean, the engine doesn't care that much, of course, but I mean, alright, it's an engine. Engines are engines. I mean, in fact, even here, this is the move that's losing according to the engine. Now it's just file. He could have tried takes knight g3 here, here. And apparently this is not as awful as it looks, which is difficult to tell, of course. But it could be true. I mean, I don't doubt that the engine can calculate enough to see that despite the terrifying horse and the pressure on the A file and everything, maybe White isn't in time to do anything very terrible. Okay, but it looks disgusting. What actually happened, now he got completely squished. Horror on the white squares. Well, it's awful anyway. What actually happened was he allowed that, which didn't help matters. And here he gave up. I mean, if you take the queen, you're splattered. If you don't take the queen, you're splattered. So this was rather a wonderful game. It showed Karpov's sheer power. That, you know, once you let him get hold of you, it was horrible. You know, he's a wonderful middle game player in particular, and absolutely no let up once he got control of the position. So there we are. Oh, I mentioned that I also thought of as the comfy chair, d4, knight f6, knight f3, 6, g3, b5, which is a pretty boring opening. But actually I've lost with the comfy chair a couple of times as White, because I've perhaps got too comfortable or been too sleepy when I've been playing it. So there we are. Please do, if you have more thoughts about Python analogies, please tell me. I won't be doing another column on this subject for a while, but it would be lovely to have your ideas. And I'm looking to see why he resigned. Obviously, queen takes, pawn takes is absolutely disgusting. Queen f7. I think he probably just goes knight g4, doesn't he? I suppose I ought to let me just ask an engine. Take back. Knight h5. I'm too lazy to. Knight h5. Queen f7. Bishop b6, it says, is even stronger. I mean, everything is winning. Bishop b6, rook a3, rook a3, rook b8. Ugh, it's just awful, isn't it, to say. Oh God, you can do this. That's horrid, isn't it? What? No, you can't. You can go queen takes, sorry. Just queen takes f7 override. Sorry. Because I'm not thinking, I'm just following an engine, then I'm spouting absolute nonsense. Delete variation. And that easily happens. That's why basically you shouldn't well, you certainly shouldn't let an engine tell you what openings or what position you want to play. That's a very bad idea indeed. You can listen to it, of course, because if it error checks like it just did, I just wasn't looking at the position, then it will tell you they're wonderful error checkers, but they're not. But you shouldn't listen to them too much, because, you know, they say things which are true, but not really comprehensible from a human point of view sometimes. Okay, right, I'm stopping now. I seem to be burbling a little bit. Please, if you have any ideas for the next column, which will be on the 4th of March, then say in the notes or email me, because I'm very much open to suggestions, and I'll see you next time then.